My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to J&J Miller Real TV. Today we have a really good treat for you. We are going to make some Peruvian chicken thighs. The good thing about this recipe, we're also going to have some quinoa on the side, and we're going to have some corn on the cob on the side. And all three of them take the same amount of time to cook. So we're going to put everything in all at the same time. It'll all be done at the same time, and we are going to have an incredible meal. Catch you right back here. So right here in this first cup, we have about 3/4 cup of soy sauce. I've got about 3 tablespoons of vinegar right here. I've got about 1.5 tablespoons of vegetable oil here. I've got 1 tablespoon of cumin here. 1.5 teaspoons of paprika. I've got about 6 cloves of garlic that I minced right here. Over here, I have 3/4 of a teaspoon of oregano, 1/4 teaspoon of ground red pepper, and then back here I've got about 1/2 cup of chopped cilantro. We're going to put all of these in the blender and puree them and use it for the marinade. Alrighty, so first we're going to put our soy sauce in there, and then our vinegar, the vegetable oil, the cumin, paprika, our minced garlic, and get all of that loveliness down in there. We've got some oregano here. We've got a little bit of ground red pepper. And then we have our cilantro that we're going to put in there. We're going to put the lid on this and puree it, and then we're going to have our marinade. Alrighty, so we have our marinade for the chicken thighs, and the best way, in my opinion, to marinate is just to use a freezer bag, and we're just going to dump our marinade in there. And then we're going to drop our chicken thighs. I've got about 8 bone-in chicken thighs here that we're going to put in the bag. And we're going to seal it and pop it in the refrigerator and let these bad boys marinate for about 30 minutes. Slosh this around, make sure everything's got some of that marinade, all of the chicken thighs have some of that marinade on it. And they do. Okay, so we're going to pop this in the refrigerator and let it sit for about 30 minutes. Alrighty guys, so while our thighs are in the refrigerator marinating, we are going to make our sauce to pour over the chicken thighs when they're done. And it is a green sauce, scallions, jalapenos, a few spices, a little bit of goat cheese thrown in there. It's really going to be a good sauce for it. So let's run through those ingredients real quick. Right here I've got about 3 scallions that I cut up. How you cut these up, it doesn't matter because it's all going in the blender and it's going to be pureed anyway. So I just did a really loose chop on the onions. And then I've got 2 pretty good sized jalapenos here that I cut up. I've got about 1 tablespoon of fresh squeezed lemon juice here. I've got 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil here. I've got about 2 ounces of goat cheese here that we're going to put in it. And then I've got about 1/2 cup of half and half here. I've got about 1/2 teaspoon of salt here. And then I've got my pepper grinder here. We're going to put all of this in the blender, puree it up, and have our sauce. Okay, so anytime I have solid items and wet items, I like to put the wet items into the blender first, so your solid items don't get hung up down there in the blade. So we're going to put our half and half in first, and then we can put our jalapenos and our green onions. We've got some lemon juice here. got our vegetable oil here. We've got our goat cheese here. We've got a little bit of salt. We've got some fresh cracked pepper. And we're gonna put the lid on this and puree it and have a really good sauce for our thighs. Alrighty guys, so we have our green sauce here. All I'm gonna do is put it in the refrigerator and let it sit until we're ready to pour it onto our chicken wings. That'll give all those flavors some time to really marry together. And I already taste tested it though, and it's really good. It's got some heat to it because I put those 2 jalapenos in it. So if you don't have a good tolerance for spiciness, you may want to cut the jalapeno down to maybe 1 or take out the seeds in the membrane. I did leave the seeds and membrane in there too, and that's where all the heat is. So this is going to have quite a bit of kick to it once we put it onto the chicken. And remember, the chicken marinade also has that little bit of ground red pepper in there too. So this is kind of a spicy dish. Alrighty, catch you back in just a few. Alrighty guys, so our chicken is done marinating. It's been marinating in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. You never want to marinate chicken or any type of poultry at room temperature. You always want to put it in the refrigerator. So the chicken and the corn on the cob both are going in the oven at the same time. They both go in at the same temperature and they both bake for the same amount of time. So what we're going to do is we are going to take all of these thighs out. And we're going to put them on our baking sheet. And there are 8 thighs here. And for this dinner, we're going to use 6 of them. And then the other 2, I'm going to make some chicken nachos with the other 2 that are really, really out of this world too. So you actually get 2 meals out of this recipe. So there we have our 8 chicken breasts. We're going to discard this, get rid of it, and we're going to work on our chicken now, our corn on the cob. So for the corn on the cob, all I'm going to do is I'm going to spray it with a little bit of oil, and then I'm going to sprinkle it with some chili powder, and that's it. And then we're going to put it on the pan, and we're going to roast it right along with the chicken thighs, okay? Alrighty guys, so all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna spray my corn a little bit with the spray. And then I'm gonna sprinkle it with a little bit of chili powder, not much, just a little bit of chili powder. You can use paprika, you could use cumin, you could use, really whatever you want. Chili powder has the paprika and cumin both in it already. So now we're just gonna put our corn on the cob on the pan along with our chicken thighs. We're gonna pop these in the oven. I've got it preheated at 425 for about 30 minutes. Alrighty guys, so our chicken and our corn on the cob's in the oven. It takes about 30 minutes at 425. So now we're going to prepare our quinoa. Quinoa is a grain. Good substitutes for quinoa would be rice or couscous, polenta, something like that. But we're going to use quinoa today. This is tricolor quinoa. It has white, black, and red, all 3 in it. And all you do with quinoa, you cook it just like you do rice. You put it in a pot. You put your water, I'm using chicken broth with it. You put that in there, bring it to a boil, simmer it down for about 15 minutes, and then turn the heat off, and then let it sit for about another 10 minutes. So all of this process is probably going to take about 30 to 35 minutes, the same amount of time that the chicken and the corn is going to take. So what we're going to do, we're going to put our chicken broth in there. And what this was, it was 1 cup of quinoa and 1 3/4 cup of chicken broth. Okay, so we'll put the quinoa in there, and then we're just going to mix it up. And you can see it's going to cook just like you would rice. So we're going to bring this to a boil, and then we're going to let it simmer for 15 minutes, turn the heat off, and let it sit for another 10. Okay guys, so our quinoa has been on the stove for about 15 minutes simmering. We brought it to a boil, and then we let it simmer for about 15 minutes. We've got about 10 minutes left on everything, so now you just turn the heat off, let it sit for another 10 minutes, and by the time it's done, the chicken and corn is going to be done, and we're going to have a really good dinner. Alrighty guys, so it's been about a half hour for our chicken and our corn. Our quinoa is done. Remember, bring it to a boil, then let it simmer for 15 minutes, then turn the heat off and let it sit for 10. And while that's happening, your chicken and corn will be baking in the oven, roasting in the oven, and they'll be done. So let's take all this out. Look at that. So we're going to grab a thigh, and we're going to grab a corn, and we're going to grab a little bit of quinoa. And just to show you how the quinoa turns out, it just soaked up that chicken broth just like rice or polenta or couscous does. And it's got a really, really good flavor with the chicken broth instead of water. You can use water if you want. If you're making a beef dish, then you would want to use beef broth instead of chicken broth. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put a little bit of our green sauce on the chicken. And remember, there's 2 full jalapenos in this sauce. So it is going to really, really have some good heat to it. If you don't have a good tolerance for heat, then you probably should just use 1 jalapeno. So first, I'm gonna take just a little bit of this quinoa. The quinoa is really, really good. Because I used the chicken broth instead of water, it just really turned out well. Really, really, really good flavor. Little chili powder on our corn on the cob. That's perfect as well. Really, really good. So now I'm gonna have just a little piece of my chicken thigh here. It's got a little bit of that green sauce on there. Wow, guys, that is incredible. So much flavor in there with the chicken and then the green sauce with those scallions and jalapenos. Just incredible flavor. This is going to be one of our regular meals here because it is so good, simple to make, so flavorful, a little different. So if you try this, let me know what you think of it. It is really, really, really good. I'm enjoying it. So thanks so much for watching the video. Please, if you would, subscribe to our channel if you have not done so already. And then like and comment and share for us. We would appreciate that. And we will see you next time right here on J&J Miller Real TV. Take care, guys.